welcome to the Read All Over Show presented by LYLT Carnivale and me, your host, Toy Thomas, author, blogger, and reading advocate. I am so excited to share today's guest with you. Glorious Raine drafts stories that nourish the spirit and inspire joy through creativity. Let's meet Glorious Raine. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I know I discovered you through the Joy Drop on Substack, and I really enjoyed the vibe so much that I reached out to you for this program. So, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I am somebody who is um, an avid reader, lover of the written word. And so it's something I've always done. I've been reading since I was a little girl. My sister, even to this day, she's 2.5 years older than me, and she was just the other day teasing me about how everywhere we went, Lorraine had to have a book in her hand. We could just be going to the grocery store, and she had to have that book. Well, I got to go get my book before we leave the house because I always had a book, and that's just something that stuck with me. I love reading. I'm stuck on certain authors. So, I follow certain authors and their characters that they write about. I listen to the same ones, read all the same ones all the time. But as an adult, I kind of had to pivot the reading into listening just because I just don't have the time. But that is, so now I'm an audiobook lover. I love the library's free audiobook download program, Libby. I use it all the time.
Yes, I love you.
Yeah, Amazon's Audible as well, so I love to read. And there's a little life that I lived with my family, with my husband, and I have two children, two boys and a daughter. And my older son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was not even 2 years old, 23 months old. So many years ago now, because he'll be 28 in July. And so what kind of put me on the road to becoming a self-published author slash writer was the fact that I had probably about 15, almost 20 years ago, about 20 years or so ago, somewhere around there, I had started a book and I called it Life Changing. And it was when the self-publishing boom was kind of just becoming a thing, and no one knew what they was doing. No one knew about it too much, but it was something I heard of. And so I wrote this little mini book about our life based off of what I had to do for a college assignment at the time. And I took that and I thought, I'm going to publish it as a book. And so that's what I did. I threw it up there on lulu.com way back in like 2005 or six, somewhere around there. No idea what I was doing. The layout was horrible. The format was like, what is this? I can't sell this like this. And so it just stayed up there for a minute. No one purchased it. I took it down. And then all these years went by. My life moved in circles and ebbed and flowed the way it does. And then 2020 hit, and I was like, you know what? I want to write this book. I'm going to publish this book. And let me get back to it because at one point I had did a little bit of writing for a online newspaper when my son was younger, and my topic was about raising a child with type 1 diabetes. So I had some articles that I had written about what we went through, the things that we learned, what helped us out, what helped us grow as a family in regards to managing his diabetes through school and things like that. And so I had that stuff written. I still had the original book that I had published, and had my college, work. You always save everything. So I had my college assignments that were based on that book, and so I just pulled all that out and I um, pulled it together and started working on the actual book that I did publish. So that was then, which was actually my second book, but it's kind of my baby because it's based on my baby.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's called 585, the number that changed our lives, and that book. This one here is the one that was most important at the time. But that's kind of what got me really into the writing game. Of really just focusing on writing, focusing on taking the steps it takes to write the book, put it together, and all of those things that go with it.
Yeah.
Uh, but the funny thing is, backtracking, it was actually my second book that I published because the first one was a dance terminology book for ballet and jazz dance terminology. And that one was easy because I don't see it as a book. It's more of I guess you want to call it an educational book, a dictionary. And that's actually where I labeled it, the ballet and jazz dance dictionary, because really it was terminology that I had, dance terminology. So you're looking at talking about the um, all the technique that you learn in a dance class written on paper, because the writing of it is different, the way you pronounce the words, And then the definition of the word is amazing that a dance technique has a definition, but it does,
Yeah.
So I took that from a class that I had taken at one point. I was in a college class for dance, and we had to learn the written terminology. So again, something else I saved. I saved all of the booklets that we were given, where we had to all the terminology was written out for jazz. It was written out for ballet. We had to test on that, and so I thought, you know what? And I remember, even though I danced all of my life, when I hit college in my 40s, mind you, this was not me, young me. This was 40-year-old me taking a dance class in college. Uh, and it was just like, well, you know what? This has kind of made me a stronger dancer. There's
Yeah.
other dancers out there that they dance, but they don't necessarily know everything that they're doing or what they're or how they're doing it. And when you go into audition and things like that, you're thrown into a class. The choreographer expects you to know the lingo and be able to just do it. So I thought, you know what? This was a quick, easy book, and so that was my first one. And it is called The Ballet and Jazz Dance Terminology. That's this one here. I know it's hard to see the books in the camera. Let's
Oh,
see.
don't worry. It'll be on
Yeah.
the screen.
Yes, but um, that is the first one. And it was very easy to publish. And so I did that really quick. I put it together and I just put it up there. I got a couple of sales off of it. But the biggest thing was just the experience of knowing that, for one, oh, okay, I can self-publish. This is not as hard. It's hard, yes, and it takes a lot of steps, but it's not something I couldn't do. So that was me, my first, me knowing that, okay, this is a good step to take, because of course I would love to have found a publisher, but my problem with publishing, we all know, it's just so hard to get your foot in that door. It's a lot of money. You need an agent, all those kind of things. And I thought, well, my writing is not for that, at least not yet, so let me just start here. So that was what I did. I started with that first book. Then I moved into 585, like I said, about my family, raising my son. And just those two experiences alone has kind of made me an author. And I know that that's kind of the main thing that I am when it comes to the creative side. But I was going off a lot of what people were saying you needed to do to be exposed, to get exposure, which
Yeah.
was be on social media. I am not a social media person. I've tried.
Yeah.
I have tried.
It's one of
And
those
it's
things that you just kind of get stuck with, you know?
Yeah. And it's just, I just can't do it the way everybody else does. I tried and I was like, you know what? I'm just not I put out too much time and energy to get what I felt was this little small portion back. You know what I mean? And so I had to start over time, just try to minimize where I was putting my time into. But because I was trying to get exposure for me as a writer and a self-publisher, I started writing on Medium. So I still have my platform on medium.com, my profile on there. And then at some point, I thought I'll try Substack. I did that for about 6 months or so, and I actually shut the whole thing down. So this is my second Substack, actually.
Oh,
Most
okay.
people don't realize that, but it's my
Okay.
second Substack that you found me on. Because the first one, I just was like, I'm not getting any feedback, not getting any airplay. That's a waste of time. And Substack was a little different than it is now. So,
Yeah.
and something told me last year, beginning in the last year, just to do it again. And so I'm kind of glad I did, because it's a totally different vibe now than
Yeah.
it was before. But that's kind of how I try to stay a little relevant. And as a author, really is to also be a writer. So I try to write articles here and there from life experiences, things that mean something to me. And my biggest personal thing is joy and peace.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's lost in this world. I feel like people just have a hard time finding joy and keeping it, a hard time finding peace and keeping it. And I think a lot of people, personally, I feel like we just don't always understand that the two of them are not only intertwined, but they also come from within. And it's hard to understand sometimes for some people that that's an inward thing, not an outward thing, and meaning that you can see joy from the outside, because I do. I find joy in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I actually find peace by walking in the park. So that would be an external thing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it comes from within, in a sense of, even if I have a bad day at work, even if I'm having a rough time at home, or even if I get into an argument with somebody, or my driving experience was horrible today, all of those things can happen, but I still have peace. I
Yeah.
still have joy. And I don't allow those things to take joy or peace away from me. So those have always been my biggest things. And that's the reason why I talk a lot about joy, or ways to enjoy peace, ways to keep and find your peace. And that's kind of what the joy drop on Substack is about,
Yeah.
is finding that joy and connecting it with peace, or whatever it is you are dealing with in your life at that moment. There's still room for joy, there's still room for peace, and it's still they go together,
Yeah.
and they should always be there. So that's kind of what I focus on when I'm not writing a specific book. And I am, as a writer, currently working on my first fiction book, because the first two books that I've written are both nonfiction. I have a third book that I'll talk about later, that I wrote. I published that one, I think, about a year ago. And actually, wow, almost 2 years ago, 2024. Look at that. Um, I'll talk about that one later on in the podcast. But that third book is also it's a nonfiction slash, well, it's a fiction puzzle journal, excuse me. It's a fiction journal. So I will say, now that I think about it, it's a both. It's a little bit of nonfiction, as in the reason why I wrote it. But then it's also has a little mini fiction story mixed in there, but it's a journal.
Okay.
So that's my third book, but I am working on my first short story book. And I'm excited about that one. I wanted to get it done prior to now. My plan was to have it published last year, but then you know how life goes.
Oh yeah.
And so it took me a minute to rearrange it and put it the way I really wanted it to go when I started having the ideas of what to do with it. And so that's my next bigger project, I guess you could say. And in the meantime, I'm just trying to build myself stack up a little bit and just kind of stay relevant.
Yeah.
But that's really all about who I am for the most part.
All right. Well,
It was a lot.
yeah, you covered a lot. I mean, I feel like you covered so much that I'm just going to stick to some of the fun questions for the interview. But we are going to go back. We are going to circle back to talk about some of the books that you've written and why. But I want to go back to what you said about being an avid reader, and there are
Yes.
like certain things that you love to like reread. So let's talk about that a little bit. So this
Hmm.
segment is called On the Bookshelf. So what are you currently
Yes.
reading?
On my bookshelf. Wow. I have, for some reason, in the last, wow, maybe 3 or 4 years, have gotten into autobiographies. I
Oh.
don't know why, but I don't remember where it started from, but right now I'm currently reading Viola Davis, Finding Me. It's very slowly, because it's an actual tangible book. That was the one thing I did do, is I started making myself buy books again
Mm-hmm.
about 3 or 4 years ago, because I hadn't purchased a book in a long time. And I knew, because I said, I'm not going to read this. It's going to take me forever to read a book. So I stopped buying them. Uh,
Yeah.
so, but something said I needed to buy certain books. And so that's what I've been doing. So right now, currently, I am reading Viola Davis's Finding Joy, Jennifer Lewis's book, Walking in My Joy. Look at that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Viola Davis's book is called Finding Me. I think I said Finding Joy, but it's called
Yeah.
Finding Me.
Maybe. Okay.
Um, yes, and then Jennifer Lewis, her autobiography, Walking in My Joy. That's on my bookshelf. And I love Jaleel White from uh, Family Matters. I just love him as a person, and I loved his character, Urkel, of course.
Yeah.
So he recently published an autobiography that I purchased last year.
Yeah. That's cute.
Yeah, that was called Growing Up Urkel.
Oh.
Um, yeah, exactly. And I think because he talks a little bit, I haven't read all of it, but I listened to an interview or two back, here and there with him, and he does mention a little bit about how he struggled coming out of being Urkel
Oh yeah.
as an adult. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And so that kind of was what sparked my interest on that one, which I haven't read yet, of course. And let's see, wow, what else is on my bookshelf? Ah, Grace Golden Glory. That is Gabrielle Douglas's autobiography.
Oh,
Yes,
nice.
because I'm a gymnast at heart. That's something else I did in the past, briefly in high school, but also tumbled all of my life. Love acrobat.
I did
I
a
would tumble
little
down
bit
the
as
backyard.
well.
Yes, I love tumbling,
Yeah.
and I love gymnastics. So, of course, the Olympic time comes up, and I'm watching all of it when it comes to
Yeah.
gymnastics. Simone Biles is everything right now,
Yeah.
with her abilities. But before her was Gabby Douglas, and
Yeah.
so when I saw her, I ran across her book, her autobiography, on clearance at a bookstore about a year ago, and I was like, oh, I have to have this. So, I haven't read it yet, but
Yeah.
it's on there. And then I think that's those are the few I bought more recently. But Tina Turner's, she has a wonderful book of her of it's more of hold on real quick.
Okay.
It is called, I get the name right, Happiness Becomes You. And
Okay.
it's a Tina Turner book. It's not so. It's called A Guide to Changing Your Life for the Good. So it's based on parts of her life, but what I like about it is it's also her telling her story of how she became a Buddhist and getting into Buddhism. And she kind of gives you um, little tidbits of information on what it's like to be a Buddhist, what the Buddhists believe, things like that. But it's intertwined with her backstory. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So that one I just finished that one about a year ago. But yeah, I have quite a few books on my shelf now, and I'm happy about that. That I got back to purchasing tangible books. Reading them all, that'll take forever, but
You
it's the
got them.
goal and
That's
work
the
in
first step.
progress.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned earlier that there were certain authors that you go back to a lot, you reread them. Want to share some of those?
Well, sure. Let me see. I don't necessarily reread, but I will say I follow.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, James Patterson, love him. Love Alice Cross. If you don't know who James Patterson is, you probably have seen. Then, if you watch Prime, you probably seen Aldous Hodge playing Alex Cross
Yeah.
on the new TV show Alex Cross. But
Yeah.
if you follow James Patterson, you realize that Alex Cross goes back about 25, 30 years,
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
Mhm.
Anyway, uh, I love his writing and I love that particular character. But then he has Lindsay Boxer character I love too. So I follow his writing because I like how he continues his characters' life stories.
Mhm.
So, for instance, Alex Cross has about 25, 30 books, something like that.
Yeah.
He has two other major characters that I listen. Matter of fact, no more than that now, about four or five different characters that he writes about steadily. So, I'm constantly looking for his next book.
Okay.
Um, Let's see, who else do I follow a lot? I used to love Elin Harris. God rest his soul. Um, he is another one whose books were just phenomenal. I used to get his books from the library, and now I will say I will pick up a book and re-listen to his. So I take that back. I will reread or re-listen to a book. And then also Eric Jerome Dickey. Oh my goodness, he's another one of my favorites. I was so sad when he passed. Like I knew him personally.
Let's say I'm not
Um,
familiar. What did you
yes,
write?
he is. He's a romance. Now, I guess you want to say romance. He's
Okay.
kind of in the romance drama type of department, but he is a African American author, and so is
Mhm.
So is Elin Harris.
Yeah,
So
I
I kind of
figured
dated
you were
myself
here.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Eric Jerome Dickey, he is like milking my coffee,
Okay.
getting in. He has like he too has some books were just standalone books. Others were based on a character, and they would have more than one book about that character. But if you were looking for a good African American author to go back and to listen to from who's not around anymore, he would be one I would recommend for people is to find an Eric Jerome Dickey's books. They are phenomenal. And every now and then I'll pull one of his books up from the library too and just re-listen to it. Carl Weber,
Yeah.
Family Business.
Yeah.
Yes. He's another one. I listen to all of his books. So yeah, there's a few authors that I stick with. And my goodness, Walter Mosley.
Okay.
Walter Mosley.
I like
Yes,
both of those.
he's
Yeah.
yeah. I listen to a lot of his books too. So there's quite a few that I kind of like I say I stick to, and then there's a few. Victoria Murray, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. She's another one. And there's probably a couple females in there too
Yeah.
that I would I love their books when I can either find them in the library or when they're something new comes out. Oh, there's another one too, Kimberla Lawson Roby. She is a African American female author who recently retired from writing. I want to say about 3 years or so ago. She kind of pivoted into coaching,
Oh, okay.
but she had a character that she wrote about for years. He was a pastor. And she probably, again, I think he has about 15, 20 books based on that one character, and they are so good. So she's another one that I would recommend if you're looking for a good story to dig into. She has a few other books too that are standalone character books, but there's one main one that she
Yeah.
wrote about all the time. But yeah, I just every now and then I'll dabble in something totally new, but for the
Yeah.
most part, I kind of stick with those people.
That's good. And that's one of the reasons why I love asking questions like that because For anyone who isn't an avid reader and you sit there and you listen to them talk about the books that they like to read and the authors they like to go back to, it kind of makes you want to be a reader and have that
Hmm.
connection with the story, with the character. So, yeah.
Yes, because I feel like I know Alex Cross like he's my friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I've listened to so many of his storylines. I'm like, why
Yeah.
they do that to him? Oh my goodness, what is happening now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know him personally. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It's like you want to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So this next part is that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about you as a writer. This is what I call the open book. And this is just where we kind of get
Mhm.
pretty candid about the way we write or how we write our expression. And so
Okay.
knowing that the first couple of books that you released were nonfiction, there's this I think this misconception that if you're writing something nonfiction, there's not a lot of creativity that goes into it. But I
Mhm.
know otherwise.
You're right.
So I would love to hear some of your experience of having to use some creativity when writing those nonfiction books.
That's a good question. Yes. So starting with the dance book, the ballet and jazz dance terminology. That book, I did really have to figure out how to do it.
Mhm.
And I just kind of was like, you know what? I feel like this should be great information to put out there. But it's not a book, it's not a novel. It's not, and so it took me a minute to really just sit down and put the pieces together. Like I pulled out the packets that I had saved, as a PDF of all the different terminology that I had in ballet and jazz class. And looked at them both. And one of the first things I did was just kind of go through what I highlighted back then, and then also remembering as a dance instructor when I did teach, what were the basics. So the creative part for me was determining what I was going to cut out, what I
Mhm.
was going to keep, and then how to put it together.
Yeah.
So it went from being what some would say, which is supposed to be when you write a novel. You know what I mean? People always talk about writing novels, and a lot of people don't ever really talk about writing from a personal standpoint. So
Right.
that's why for me, the creative side really was just digging into how to do it from that standpoint of what goes where, and then putting it together. So then, of course, I was like, well, this is actually like a dictionary. Like, it's really a dictionary. It's not a book. It's not a novel. It's a dictionary. So I put it together as such. And that took me a minute to really think about that. Like, you know what? I'm just going to put it the same way. It's the same way you would you open the dictionary as a list of words. And so that's kind of what I did. But then I had the preface. So, I had to put a preface in there about why I did this,
Yeah.
why I chose to put this together, and then why I put it together the way I did, because it really is meant for a dance instructor to be able to buy it and give to their students. For anyone who loves dance that may want to, nowadays people are teaching themselves how to dance just from watching stuff online. So now here you go, you can buy this book of terminology, and it gives you all the basic terminology that you would need to know while you're watching these dance videos to teach you to learn how to dance. Yes, they're going to show you what a pas de bourrée is. They're going to show you what a PK is, but now you can see on paper that a PK is the point of the toe to the knee. You know what I mean? And it's explained that way. So I just kind of had to be creative in the sense of putting it together, and then making sure that if I looked at this book and it wasn't mine, would it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I had to sit down and do that part. And I think that really was the creative side of it, was saying this can be done, just how.
Right.
And then when it came to writing my the book about my son, that one was definitely a creative piece, because a lot of nonfiction may not have poetry in it, unless some people may put poetry in
Right.
nonfiction, but I don't see it too often. So I have little small pieces of very, very basic. When I say basic, I mean like elementary school type child's poetry. But for me, it was the poetry that I wrote at the time when I did my school project. But
Mhm.
yeah, I had to, at first it was like, well, what do you put in this book besides your life experience? Well, the creative side for me came when I was like, you know what? You used to write a blog that you wrote on a diabetic website. It was a diabetes website back then that was a community site. So you could get on there if you were a person who was a type 1 diabetic, someone that is raising one, living with one, or whatever it was, you could have a blog space on their website. And this was back in the early 2000s. And so I had that. And I type person that saved everything. And I was glad I did because I had copies of the stuff that I blogged about. So I took that and, oh, you can put this in a book. Because you talked about what it was like when he would get upset when you had to give him his shot. You talked about what it was like when you had to go to the school and tell them that he was a type 1 diabetic and go give him an insulin shot during lunch. You talked about that on this blog. You know, knowing, putting together the fact that the articles that I've written on the online news platform that I wrote was about raising a child, specifically about raising a child. So teaching them how to take care of themselves, learning how to let go as a mom, as a parent, as a dad, learning how to say, you know what, we have to make sure that he or she understands how to check their own blood sugar, give themselves their own shot. So, I wrote about those things. So I took all of those things and put them into this book, but it's technically nonfiction because it's about my life.
Right.
But at the same time, the creative side was add that blog piece in there. And
Yeah.
it's actually written in a book that way. These are what I used to blog about. And I put that in the book. This is what I blogged about. And this is what helped me. It helped others or whatever. So it was interesting because I think that's why at first I struggled with being creative and knowing what, understanding that that's what I was. I'm not just an author. I'm
Yeah.
not a writer. I'm just a creative person. I mean, I always have been. So putting all that together and then putting it on paper was like, yep, you can do this. And even the book, the third book I published called, that's titled For the Love of Dolls, is actually a journal. But again, you heard me trying to figure out what it is. It's nonfiction, but then again, it's not. It's a journal. But the reason why I did it was my mother had asked me about it, about writing a book for older children, older girls who still like dolls, and about finding a book for older children who still like dolls, and to give her, examples of books like that. And I was like, well, rather than me try to find one, because I don't really know where to look for a book like that for a child that is 12 and still likes dolls. But people are like, may tell her she's too old to be playing with dolls. So I thought, I'm just going to write one instead. And
Yeah.
then it went from writing it to, well, how would I present this? And so I had the little creative spark of this little story that came to me about a little girl who loved dolls, but people told her she shouldn't be loving dolls anymore because she's too old. And so that I threw that in the book. You know what I mean? And so it was like, but then now what? And so it became a journal. And that was the creative side of it. Well, now we've got this little book about dolls, but if you love dolls, maybe create your own
Yeah.
journal about other things that go with that. So, it was just a matter of, I think, really sitting down. A lot of times it would be that sitting down, brainstorming
Hmm.
of being true to who you are and then understanding that, yeah, you're different. And it's okay to be different.
Well, let me ask you this. So, like, I have this idea, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, that a lot of people underestimate the creativity that's involved in what I call curating your own work, because you decide what things are going to go in and what things are going to come
Hmm.
out and how you're going to present it. And I feel like that's part of the creative process.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is because like I said, that's one thing I had to do, especially when it came to the book about, like I said, raising my son, the 585, the number that changed our lives. That is the name of that book. And the reason why is because I remember that day and I remember that was what I was told. His blood sugar was 585 and he was 23 months old. And it was, if you had not brought him back into us today, he probably would have died of a diabetic coma. The shock on my face at 27 years old being told that. So, that was, like you said, it was, do I put that in the book? Yeah, because that's what happened. And
Yeah.
that's what this whole book is about. My personal emotional roller coaster, of what I went through finding out that my baby was a diabetic, you know. But then also, like you said, putting the pieces together. I did a PowerPoint. I remember with that particular book is the only one so far that I've done a PowerPoint. And the reason why is because I had so much information. And it was like, do I rewrite this or do I share it exactly where I wrote it 15 years ago? Do I put this in a book at all? And then what comes first? So you're absolutely right. The creative side really is that part of it alone, because I do remember, as you asked me that question and I'm talking through it, I still have that PowerPoint, and it's the only book so far out of the four that I've written that I did a PowerPoint for, because it was so much. I had to break it down. It was like, okay, these are all your articles, these are all your poems, these are all your the blogs. Okay, so now what? Do I put all the blogs in one spot, all the poems in one spot, all the articles in one spot? No, no. Do I weave them in between? Probably. Let's figure that. You know what I mean? And so it was really this conversation with myself of what goes where. And the PowerPoint looks like that now. It's got the line through it. And I've got this pulled over here. I can see how I pulled it from over here to over there. And so it's interesting, but it definitely is a creative point.
Yeah.
And it has to be because everything can't always go into everything. You can't put everything you have into one book sometimes because it might be too much.
Right.
Or, you have to put everything in there because it doesn't work well without it. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that is definitely a creative side to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I love having these conversations and putting it out there for people to see this because there are people who are going to be hearing this and will be thinking, oh, I just thought it was a matter of just putting words on pages, but it's
Yeah.
so much more than that.
Mm-mm. It's not, no. And it definitely is more than that because it's also about how much do you want to share.
Yeah.
Especially from a nonfiction standpoint. As a fiction writer, you kind of have carte blanche because you're changing names, you
Yeah.
got characters, you got fake towns and worlds, you can create all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to nonfiction, you really are kind of in this bubble, in this tunnel of, okay, this is real. And because it's real, I have a husband, I have two kids, I have really three kids, to be quite honest, my daughter too. But like my sons were there more than she was when it came to them being watching each other. So I have a young son. I have a son who's 20, who's 6 years younger than his older brother. His older brother's the one that had type 1 diabetes. So he was watching that.
Yeah.
And, so I had to put all those things in my mind and say, well, this is not just about me. If I put this out there, even though I don't have their names in the book specifically, and that was on purpose because of that. I don't because and they're both adults. So I was like, when I went to publish this book, my younger son was almost an adult. My older son, who the book is about, was already an adult. And so I was like, I'm not just going to put his name in this book. But that's the thing. It's like you have to really be like, as a nonfiction author, you have to take into account all the people that your story may affect,
Right.
can affect, is about. You know what I mean? Because your life is not just your own. Unfortunately, it's not. You have
Yes.
sisters, brothers, moms, dads, cousins, whoever else who
Yeah.
is involved with your life in some way. And so if you're putting even a life experience about a birthday party you went to, you know, that your cousin's birthday party, guess what? Your cousin was there, and so was half their family at this cousin's birthday party. So if you talk about a good or a bad experience you had there, you got to remember they're going to know about it too. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And do you want to talk about that without letting them know? Or do we leave that alone? So it was definitely about a lot of that, really just like you said, just deciphering what's important and what's not. And then honestly, where to go from there and who needs to know. If there is someone that needs to know, you got to make sure they know that this is what you're doing because unfortunately, if you're going to have it in there, even if you change your name or don't add a name, they know that it could be about them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So you
Yeah.
really got to be mindful of those things.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So a lot that goes into that.
Yes.
So we talked about your reading and the people that you follow, and then we've talked about your creative approach. So now I want to just talk a little bit. You mentioned we know that you have the three nonfiction works under your belt. You did
Hmm.
mention that you are working on some fiction. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, I have just ideas I've had forever about different things, and I don't even know where this one started from. I can't remember how I got to this point, but it started out with a story about a lost recipe, um, family recipe, and so, and I think I was in a writing group or something. I really can't remember because it's been so long since I started it, but it is a short story book, two different short stories, and again, a journal. So I'm kind of over the years of writing, I've been still slowly finding my way
Mhm.
into, what I want to focus on or who I am. And I kind of enjoy the short story portion. And I think I might move into doing more short stories. And I do have like other short story ideas. So the one that I'm in the middle of writing now, it started out as one story. And it just flowed off the page for me. I don't even know why, but I wrote this story probably within a matter of a couple weeks. And it started out with just an idea. And it's just basically about a lost recipe and two friends, if I'm not mistaken, they're friends, and the daughters of two female friends, and it's a recipe that the two families shared, and
Okay.
then it disappears. So the short story is about the daughters of these two women still wanting to remembering the recipe, wanting to use it, but they don't know where it's at because one woman said that it was misplaced,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
And so the story is about how it's found and the way it's found. And then the spiral of the person who finds it, how they feel, how they deal with it. So that was the start of it. And then I do know I took one creative writing class. I love the library. They used to, I don't know if they still have, they have these classes called Universal classes, online courses about everything under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was a free creative writing class, and I took that. One of our assignments was to create a movie script. And I was like, I'm not even thinking about movies, but I'm gonna go ahead and write this script. But and so the funny part about it was that that script was based on a dinner party. And I saved it. When I started writing the recipe, I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. I wonder if the dinner party will fit into that because
Oh,
it was, yeah. And so I kind of, again, the creative side of things where I was like,
yeah.
huh, how do I put these together? Because, of course, my husband had read The Recipe is the name of the first one. He read that. He said, you need to publish that now. Just publish it. And tell me he's going to take off. And I said, okay. And, we creators, we drag our feet because we hear someone else say, take off is great. But then you're like, yeah, but it's not right yet. Or
Right.
it's not done yet. Or I will. And that's kind of
Yeah.
what happened. So time went on. And then when time went on, that whole dinner party came and I was like, you know what? These two go together.
Yeah.
And so but then it was like, it's not long enough. And honestly, to be quite honest, I was like, I don't have the brain space right now to make the dinner party what the recipe was. And I say that because at the time, the recipe really just flew out of me. It was something that just poured out. I don't even know why.
Mm-hmm.
Where the dinner party, I felt like I was struggling. And I said, I don't want to struggle. I don't want to be sitting here trying to pull words out of a hat for something that doesn't make sense. So I let it sit for a minute. And then I just started seeing more things online and talking to different writing groups and things like that and learned about micro stories, mini stories,
Yeah.
and short stories. And I was like, oh, that's a thing. So yeah, I can do this. And so really the second one is not even a short story. It's a micro story. Because it's under 1,500 words. So I was like, oh, this is great. I can put them together now. And so I just kind of completed it. I completed the dinner party. And that one basically, in a nutshell, is about a young lady who goes to a dinner party with a family member and is seated next to somebody she can't stand. And that's just how that goes. Like,
Yeah.
and the nutshell of that one is realizing that, oh goodness, what do I do now? Why would she do this to me? And so but I was able to connect that brief little story to the recipe. And so now it's called Food is Love is the name of it. And I am hopefully getting ready to publish it. My goal is to publish it by the end of May, which is my birthday weekend, Memorial Day weekend. And that's only because, again, these ideas keep coming and things keep happening. And it
Yeah.
was just like, oh, this would be a great journal. And so what I did was I have decided to make it a interactive reading, basically a journal to go with it. So the journal is questions from the book
Nice.
and how you relate to certain parts of the story with your personal life. Like for instance, one of the questions is there a family recipe that this story reminds you of? Is there a family member or situation that this story reminds you of? So it's kind of like um two short stories with journal prompts. And then that's what stumped my publishing of it, honestly, is that when I put the journal prompts together in a separate Word doc through Canva, which was separate from the document that I wrote the book in, which is a regular Word doc as well. So when I tried to combine them, I didn't like the way it looked. And
Right.
so now I'm stuck in in this creative bubble of taking the time, which I don't have currently. And then I'm also not using the little bit of time I do have, which I wrote about, of course, using time you have,
Yeah.
to redo the journal portion.
Yeah.
and then fit it into the book correctly in a way that makes sense, in a way that I like it visually. It was more of a visual thing that I didn't like. I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, that's ugly. I can't do that. And so now I'm stuck in that portion of it. But that is what I'm working on now. And like I said, my goal is to have that done by the end of May, and it'll be on my website along with everything else. My website is just kind of my professional play space, is
Hmm.
how I look at it. Ooh, excuse me. And it's simple, gloriousraine.com. And you will find the books that I write. You will find the that are currently published. I have a coming soon on there about My Food is Love. And FYI, the cover has changed completely. But it is what I had left it on there on my website the way it is now because I thought, surprise, when you see me published, it's gonna be different. But that's that's what we do. But
Yeah.
yeah, the that's really the gist of that. What I'm kind of excited about. I'm waiting to see, where it goes from there, and
Well,
just kind of how it takes off.
I know that like I said, when I discovered the Joy Drop and I was, looking into your stuff and I saw that I'm gonna be honest, that's what really got me excited because I've been writing fiction for years and I'm currently working on a memoir. It's my first time ever
Oh,
writing.
nice.
Thank you. It's my first time ever doing
Yeah.
nonfiction, but it focuses on food. So when I
Okay.
saw you were coming out with that story, I was like, I have to connect with Glory, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I forgot I put that on there. So yeah, see, I'm glad that you actually saw my website because a lot of people don't. A
Yeah.
lot of people just look at wherever they see you at, and that's it. They don't look at anything else.
Oh
And so
no.
I'm glad to hear that you went
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole and said, "What's
I
the
did a
website look
deep
like?"
dive.
I
Yes.
do it too with everybody. I did it with you and everybody else. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. All right. So
I'm
I've
excited.
enjoyed this so much. It's not over
Me
yet. I'm
too.
gonna get to know you even more than we've already got to know you as a reader, as a writer. We've learned about your work. But now we're gonna go to the segment that I call Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover because I'm gonna ask you some off the wall questions. Okay.
Sounds good.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
here we go.
Okay.
First up, what is okay, here we go. This is one of those all or nothing kind of questions.
Hmm.
It's the end of the world. You can only have one snack food for the rest of your life. Is it going to be potato chips, pretzels, or popcorn, and why?
Oh my goodness, popcorn.
Pop-
That's this.
that was
If you
easy.
out, yes, that is my favorite all-time snack besides the Susie Q snack cake. I just wrote a little video article about that, the little drop in there. But yes, if I had to choose just one, and Susie Q is not an option, then yes, popcorn. I
Popcorn.
eat it almost every night.
Okay.
And again, I get my sister tease me about that. You love you some popcorn, don't you? Because you're always eating it. Yes, even as a little girl, I loved it. So yes, popcorn,
Yeah,
hands down.
I remember there was a phase that my mom had gone through for a while when I was a kid where we ate like a lot of popcorn. So I didn't eat popcorn for like 5 years. I can eat it now, but for like 5 years
Right.
of my life, I
You
was
were
like,
done with
no, no, thank
it.
you. No, thank you. But I do like
Yeah, yeah.
it.
That's hilarious.
All right.
I
Next
like that question.
question. Yeah. What are now, okay, I'm gonna share a little bit about myself before I go into this question because I am originally from Texas, and
Okay.
I was used to growing up around hot temperatures, and for me, the
Mm.
winter was ice storms, and that was it. Now, as I've gotten older, I live further north. I can handle the cold a little bit better, but I am not a cold person. Okay,
Neither am I.
so that's
Can't
the
stand it
what we're
anymore.
that's where we're going with this next
With this
question.
question?
You are stuck, girl. You are in a blizzard. You ain't
Oh
going
no.
nowhere. What are five things that you need to survive?
Oh wow. Stuck in a blizzard. Well, I need my coat for sure. My coat, hat and gloves. That's probably three things already. I don't know if that counts as all. We're gonna bundle it into one.
We're gonna count hat and gloves as accessories. So you got a coat, you got your
As
accessories.
accessories, right? Wow. In the storm. Let's see. Well, a tent, some kind of shelter that I've had to make it. If I'm in one, thankfully it has four walls. But definitely some shelter. And maybe if there's electricity, I gotta have a little heater. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, those are so many ifs with that, so I don't know.
You
But
got room for
yeah.
one more.
Yeah, see, I do, huh? Well, I have to have my husband.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we're going to say family. Just put it that way, because I
Family.
need.
Okay.
I would snag the kids wherever they at. I don't care, y'all grown. We all coming together for this blizzard we stuck in. So
Yeah. Y'all gonna stay close too, because y'all gotta keep
that's
warm.
exactly right. Right.
Yes.
So family,
Bye.
that would be the last thing. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. That is hilarious. You found
Yeah,
some questions, boy.
I do not like the cold. Okay.
Yeah. Me
Uh,
neither.
and here's one more. So, as a creative person, I already know a little bit about your interest. I know that you have a dance background. I
Hmm.
know you've done some technical writing, things like that. But I want you to think, and I'll put myself out there first. Think about something else creative that you really like doing, but you know you're not that good at. Like I love painting, girl. I have people come over to my house and we do painting parties, and
Hmm.
nobody is painting a Monet, but we're doing it
Absolutely.
just for fun. So, what is a
Yes.
creative activity that you're not very good at, but you do it anyway?
Painting. It's funny you said that.
Yeah.
Painting.
Painting.
Let me clarify. Everything that I've painted has been abstract because when I decided, like you, I started out going to, my first time I went to, nope, at the job I had 11 years ago, they had a paint and sit for a Christmas party. I thought, oh, this is pretty neat. The lady came in, we painted a little sunflower. Then the next year, I was teaching dance at a dance studio at the time, and that dance instructor, that dance, the woman that owned the dance studio, excuse me, she had a Christmas party at her house, and again, we painted a little ballet shoe together. Oh, this is neat. And then 2, 3 years went by, and I thought, I haven't been to a paint sip in a long time. Let me look them up. Didn't like any of the options that they had because my problem with them was that they always wanted their paint something specific. So come join us this week. We're painting the cowgirl's hat. No, I don't want to paint a hat. So it was like, forget it. I just went on Amazon and bought a bunch of painting supplies, and that
Yeah.
was about 5 years ago. And so I started painting, and I have a lot of abstract paintings around the house. I've
Yeah.
got a bunch in my closet now that I've painted and just put up. They were hanging up around the space, And so the funny thing about that is that I'm not an artist.
Right.
People told me I had to start calling myself one because they're like, but your art is so pretty. But it is, and I will say it is, it's nice. But at the same time, it's nothing. I can't tell you a difference between, acrylic paint and watercolors until I learned about it. I
Right.
cannot even tell you where the lines come from and go and all those things. And
Mm.
I cannot draw an actual, like I can't paint a figure or a woman's head, things like that. I've tried those things. So
Yeah.
no, I am not good at painting at all, but I love it,
Yeah.
and I do it. And so I end up what I describe my art as wherever the brush starts and wherever it ends, that's what it is. And so there, when you go on my website, you'll probably, I think I still have my art up. Yeah, I do. It's under the gallery. But anyway, it's just something I do for fun. I was at first trying to sell them a long time ago, and so they were for sale on my website. And I think they probably still are, but that's just because they're just there. But I'm like, you know what? They're not even really for sale. They're just what I like to do.
Yeah.
And yes, people, they every now and then I might get a comment on one when people come to my house and see stuff that's hung up, who painted that or whatever. But honestly, it's like I look at this stuff and I'm like, this is so amateur. This is just because,
Yeah.
but so yeah, that would be my creative thing that I probably would never be like, I'm an artist, y'all. Look at what I've done. Please buy this. Nope. Mm-mm.
No. Yeah.
I thought about it, tried it. Nope. And pull that
Yeah.
back.
I just think that in general, people should have a creative outlet. I think people stress too much
Definitely.
about being perfectionist or being good at
Yep.
something. Like you don't have to be good at something to engage with it. Paint that
Absolutely
painting. You
right.
don't have to be a Monet. Make that pottery or whatever. It doesn't
Absolutely.
have to be.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think having creative pursuits is just good for your mental health.
It definitely is. And to me, I find it's a form of relaxation, which
Mhm.
which of course brings about a nice little level of peace. So, again, it just kind of all goes together. It's a good way to do self-care sometimes. Just pull out whatever it is you love and
Yeah.
do it. Because I still do adult coloring. I love adult coloring.
Yeah,
I do
I
it every
do
blue moon
too.
now. I used to do it
Yeah.
on a regular basis, but not as much as I used to. But I
Yeah.
still have coloring books and colored pencils, and sometimes I finally will pull those out and get to coloring. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I definitely agree. Oh my goodness, I have enjoyed this so
me
much.
too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, okay, we've come to the end. Thank you for, hanging out with me today at the Read All Over show. What I want to do now is just remind our listeners that if you are a
Yes.
paid member of Lit Carnivale, Glorious does have a nice sample that she's going to be sharing with you. If you want to
Yes.
become a paid supporter of LYLT Carnivale, please visit litcarnivale.substack.com to learn more. And so until next time, stay safe, be blessed, and have fun reading. Thank you, Glorious.
Thank you for having me. Bye, guys.
Read All Over Show, Season 3, Episode 2, starring Toy Thomas, featuring Glorious Raine. Produced by Toy Thomas in association with Toy Box Works and LYLT Carnivale. Directed by Toy Thomas. Read All Over Show logo designed and trademarked by LYLT Carnivale and Toy Thomas. Intro sequence designed by Toy Thomas with the use of royalty-free images sourced from pexels.com, as well as a featured guest image. Intro music, Sunset Dream by Chill, royalty-free. Images provided by Glorious Raine. Toy Thomas, LYLT Carnivale, nor Toy Box Works claim any right to images or video content provided. Book designs, advertisement provided by Toy Thomas. This episode contains copyrighted material, affiliate links and references, and trademark images and merchandise. Please visit our website to learn more at https://litcarnivale.com. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks to the LYLT Carnivale Read All Over Show community at Substack, YouTube, and wherever you can hear this podcast. Have fun reading.